empowering almost. It was a lot of fun because I had never actually had political discussions before with other students like that. And it really sparked a passion for me for policy and politics, and that really carried on into my senior and junior year. I also did a lot of community service, which is a SETA requirement, which I think is probably the most valuable things that a high school student can do. It really gets you involved in the world around you that you probably would never go into if you didn't do community service, and I think it was a very valuable experience. However, my international class has the biggest effect on me I can speak of. We did a mock UN, or mock United Nations, and I was told to represent Sudan. During that time, Sudan was experiencing civil unrest, war, and genocide. Part of the curriculum for the International Relations class was we needed to talk about genocide around the world. And because Darfur was such a current issue, our class learned a lot more about it than anything else, and there was a special interest in Sudan. But because I was also representing Sudan and had additional research and this exposure in class, I became very interested in international relations and human rights. I decided that I wanted to work with refugees, and Civitas gave me an opportunity to do that with my my junior internship. I decided to work for the Sacramento Employment Agency, or SETA. SETA is a coalition of nonprofits where many nonprofits from around the Sacramento area come together to work with a range of issues, from teen gang violence to job training to, yes, refugees. However, the department that dealt with refugees did not need an intern, but the human trafficking division did. So I decided to work for Mary Jennings, the head of the human trafficking department. This was very relevant. At the time, a FBI report came out saying that Sacramento was a hub for human trafficking and one of the top cities for child prostitution. Not only does this impact my age, but it also impacts my gender. 50% of human trafficking victims are children and 80% are women. So I was very excited to become an intern at SETA. I was the first high school intern at SETA, so I had a pretty novel experience. They decided to make me build a database. They took me about this much of sign-in sheets, which had contact information with anybody who had been trained to identify labor trafficking, or anybody who's been exploited in the workforce. And I took this information, put it into a database. When this was done, I was going to give it to other interns at other organizations who were going to call these people who had been trained. And they would be able to identify and collect more information about labor trafficking, what areas labor trafficking may be a problem. This was a huge process. A lot of people were involved, and I actually had a key part, which was pretty amazing. The second thing I did was I did a lot of research. Mary Jennings wanted to evaluate how much I would know about human trafficking. So what she did is she told me to research and create a presentation made by a team for teams, and then I would give this presentation to Mary Jennings and some other people, including her boss. And I would use it at the end of the internship. This presentation actually becomes very, very important later on. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. The third thing I did was I had the privilege of attending a few meetings between anti-human trafficking organizations. The second one, however, is the one I remember the most. I was sitting in the meeting and there was a lot of legal jargon. It was about budgets and money, and I wasn't following as long as best as I could, but I tried. But when I had the second part of the meeting, they began to talk very casually about how many people they had saved, and how they had met their goals of saving 100 girls or 100 women or 100 boys, and how they were saying, okay, we can increase this number now next year, or the 6 months from now. I had been exposed to nonprofits, but to actually see it in action in front of your eyes in your city, it's just another thing. It wasn't abstract anymore. It was kind of a lightning bulb moment for me. I realized that I wanted to work in a nonprofit and maybe even create one for human rights. That was a very important instant for me. After this, I decided to make that my senior project. I wanted to encourage kids to get involved in these issues like SETA had for me, and how SETA had given me that opportunity. I decided to take that team presentation I made with a few modifications and give it to my students. So far, since October, and I will be ending with Mrs. Reed's class at the very end, I've been to like 350 students, around that much, and I've wanted to increase their knowledge about human trafficking and get them involved. Twice I've had 2 young ladies come up to me after class and ask me to know more, and and this is a very important thing for me because I didn't think I was actually going to get anybody to be so concerned about this issue as they were, but they really wanted to help more. And I feel like that was one of the most proudest moments of my life, that I got somebody to be this concerned. For all of this, SETA has given me that opportunity. I would have never gone to an internship. I would have never done community service. I would have never been exposed to international relations. And I want to major in international relations now with a minor in human rights, and SETA really gave me that opportunity to do that. And for that, I am truly grateful to have this experience. So thank you all for coming, and I hope it was fun for you, and have a good night.
So, questions for Tess?
What you did was phenomenal. And I would just like to hear where you're headed. I know you said a little bit about you wanted to work with a nonprofit, but what are your future plans?
I'm hoping to go to either San Diego or UC Davis, but mostly UC Davis, UC San Diego. They have a really good international relations program in there, and they also have a minor in human rights. And I'm hoping to major in that, and then for graduate school, go to UC Davis, which has the only degree that's not online in the country for regional and community development. And I'm hoping to use these skills to maybe work in a nonprofit or even start a nonprofit with human rights. And that's what I hope to do.
So Tessa and I are kindred spirits in this. I also, one of the reasons that I teach international relations is those whole human rights issues. And last summer I had an opportunity to go back to Washington, D.C. and participate in a conference on international human rights law with the Red Cross. And so I came back with this big curriculum. I've used some of their projects before, which Tess could tell you about the documentaries on Darfur and the refugee camps and some of the other things we've done. But it's kind of my goal at some point to do human rights work also. So I'm really pleased that she's sort of, going to take the mantle after me. So.
Yes. Did you say that you thought Sacramento, or that you had statistics on Sacramento being a hotbed of this, or kind of more than other communities in California?
So this information I got from Opening Doors, which deals with human trafficking, and they said that an FBI report came out saying that Sacramento is a hub for human trafficking, and we have a lot of it here, and we also have child prostitution. If I was giving a presentation, which I'll just tell you, it's because we have a highway system, and that causes a lot of human trafficking. And there's a triangle of where people will transport people, and we just happen to be part of that triangle in our area. I don't know the other two cities, I think one of them may be Nevada, but I would bet my life on
Well,
that.
you anticipated my question, I wanted to know why Sacramento, so.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was lost.
Oh, I was saying, I went to UC Davis, so I'm glad to hear that you mentioned UC Davis. And you definitely have some excellent public speaking skills, so do you have a future in, as an attorney or as a auditor somehow?
I haven't actually thought too much about that, going that direction. It was mostly about nonprofits, but if the nonprofit thing didn't work out, I would definitely want to become an attorney, so.
Good, that's you.
I was just gonna say that, church community in Sacramento is very, very involved in human trafficking. And that might be another connection for you because they do a lot of work, reaching out to that population of people. I didn't know if you had connections with them at all, but.
I don't really have connections with them, unfortunately, but when I completed the database, that was a lot of things. I had a whole section of just all the churches that had helped out. It was pretty amazing. There was a lot of people who had been trained.
Yeah, it's pretty huge, yeah.
Yeah, it's having these people being trained is really going to help us, or help SETA deal with human trafficking and labor trafficking, because there's not too much information about it.
Tessa, did you get any exposure to the efforts by the FBI, U.S. Attorney's Office, Sacramento County Probation, in terms of what they were doing about this problem?
Well, one of the meetings I went to, we had some of the legal representatives there. There was, I think, a lawyer and an attorney there. And they talked about how they wanted to deal with, I think it was Prop 37, and deal with how they were evaluating the legal parts about that. I didn't have too much with the police. I didn't get to see them very much, but Mary Jennings talked to me a lot about how they were really cracking down on child prostitution and how much they were such a good part of that fight against child prostitution, particularly.
The reason why I bring it up is just in terms of career goals, aspirations. One of the things that is there's always a need for is interagency cooperation, getting probation and juvenile probation that obviously has a lot to do with not only the perpetrators but the victims, the federal agencies that can cross state lines or statewide to get resources. And if you ever want to go into government, that's a healthy area and a great opportunity as well.
Thank you.
I would just like to compliment you on your speaking ability. Do you come by it naturally, or did you take a class, or can you point to something that's helped you be able to speak to people easily?
Well, I'll tell you right now, in my 8th grade year, I almost passed out before a presentation. I was not a good public speaker, but Civitas has a speech and debate class, and I did a speech about an uncle of mine who had been sick, and it was kind of a breakthrough for me. I did the speech, and I got a really high grade on it because I did really well, and so after that, I just seemed to do pretty good in public speaking. But actually, on November 26th, I spoke for 5 hours straight for my human trafficking, and again, that really helps me.
We try to do as many public, well, not even necessarily public, but a lot of getting up in front of the class on a regular basis in the program. So by the time they get to the senior year, they should have, spoken at least, I don't know, what, 50 times or something, that's how they get there in some kind of class. And so the kids always tell me that the rest of the classes, it doesn't matter anymore, they're so used to speaking, it's like, okay. Anything else for Tessa?
Thank you.
All right.